everyone, and welcome to the first Mosaik Moment. My name is Stephen Beck, and it is my joy to tell you about a moment, a Kairos moment, a divine moment in Europe's history, in which God is doing an unusual thing. Many of us have come to call it a Mosaik movement, a movement of God's Spirit, which is reshaping the church into a beautiful mosaic. I'm professor of practical theology at the Gießen School of Theology in Germany, the country in which I grew up. After years of church planting in the USA and Canada, I returned with my wife Susan to Germany in 2005. Not only did and do I teach church planting in this German evangelical seminary, I practice church planting with my students, which brings me to my part in God's mosaic story. In 2011, numerous students and Susan and I started an experiment. At first we called it the 50-50 church model. It came out of my teaching at the seminary that it was high time for the church to wake up to the change in society, and that the monocultural German church needed to hear God's call to the church to have a heart for the stranger, for the immigrant, for the refugee. This way of being church was already promoted by Dietrich Bonhoeffer during the ugly time of Nazism in Germany. The Nazi regime wanted the German church ethnically cleansed to become the church of German Christians. Bonhoeffer, less than a year before he was hung for his opposition to Hitler, wrote in his prison cell that the church will only then be the church of Jesus if it becomes a church for others. Out of this mandate of Bonhoeffer's came the call of God to plant such a church in Frankfurt, Germany. A 50-50 church. A church in which 50% are Germans and 50% made up of all the nationalities that again make up the immigration population in this ever-growing multicultural society. One of our core values in our church has been intercultural reconciliation through the power of the gospel. We started such a church in the same year the refugee wave out of the Middle East and Northern Africa began. Nobody could have foreseen this refugee wave. Nobody could have known that this was the real reason God laid this vision for 50-50 on our hearts. But we started to comprehend this when the first Afghan and Iranian Muslims came into our little church community, converted to Jesus, and were baptized. We began to hear that God was doing the same reshaping of congregations into mosaics in many other churches in Germany. In fact, we are realizing in Germany that where congregations are opening themselves to people of other cultures and languages, even religions, they are stepping on top of God's wave and into God's Kairos moment, and are experiencing a new dynamic. You can read many stories in the book that just appeared here in Germany called MissionMosaik, a book that will appear in 2018 in English. It has been a huge challenge for us all, a steep learning curve. I'm an experienced church planter in the USA and in Canada and in Germany, and I'm an instructor in church planting in various schools in different countries. And yet, I feel like I am having to learn a whole new way of ministering to a mosaic of a congregation with so many different cultures, mature Christians, brand new Christians, Muslim background believers, people still Muslim or atheist or Buddhist, and people who don't speak the national language yet. So, in the next few months, I want to share with you what we are learning, and maybe you would like to share back. The beginning of the Mosaik story in Germany is one that has taken us to a whole new level of being the Church of Jesus. In the next video, I want to share with you the 4 DNA factors that we have found absolutely essential in a church body if it will be a mission outpost to the many nations and religions that are right in front of our church doors. So, from me and the many pastors and church planters and co-workers and missionaries who have stepped into this divine work and onto this wave of God's Spirit, see you again in the next Mosaik Moment.